But too good for Infect. So let's see what round 4 has to offer. Getting back in it. Traverse Shadow. So Jeremy Miller lent out his Tron list. First round we got to see Eric Ford rocking it out. This time around he's saying, you know what, another deck that I really like is Ad Nauseam. I think I'm going to try it this week. So Jeremy Miller is our Season 1 champion, going to be battling out with Ad Nauseam, and he's going to be battling it out against one of our newer faces this season, Andrew Burns, running Traversed Shadow. So trying out that 4-color Shadow list, trying to have some fun with that. We'll see how things work out going into this match. So, for those that aren't familiar with Ad Nauseam, it is a combo-based strategy that can kill people with pretty much 2 ways. You can kill them with Laboratory Maniac and having no cards left in your library, drawing all of your cards, no problem. Or you can be able to kill them with Lightning Storm and discarding a bunch of lands to kill your opponent. So, 2 different ways. Now, one of them you can easily interact with by shutting off activated abilities, right? Saying Pithing Needle, for example, can name Lightning Storm. Laboratory Maniac, you have to just kill that out, right? So there's that aspect. And with Traverse Shadow, you have a lot of access to many removal spells to kind of do the job. You also have access to Disruptions, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, things like that to get rid of the combo pieces, right? Because they do have to have Ad Nauseam in their hand in order to kill you. So for those that are wondering, any cards that we discuss, you can always look those up. Exclamation card, and then the card's name in chat. So the Ad Nauseam is a unique list that if you have never seen it in action, it's powerful in the sense that you're not going to die very easily to regular damage. Oh, you're playing a creature-based strategy? Well, I have this card called Phyrexian Unlife. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I don't lose for having 0 life. So there is that aspect of things. And Jeremy getting his date on, I guess. So over here, swiping left and right constantly. While he waits for Andrew to shuffle up and get ready. Oh, gosh. There we go. Atomic Waffles letting us know. Exclamation card, Lightning Storm is one of those win cons that we were discussing. It is a 1 red instant, deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is 3 plus the number of charge counters on it. You can discard a land, put 2 charge counters on it, and guess what? Any player can do that. You can choose new targets for it. Any player can activate this ability if Lightning Storm is on the stack. But because you get to draw your whole deck, guess what? You're going to have access to all of your lands. You have access to things like Simian Spirit Guide to cast it. So, Ad Nauseam does cost 5, but for the most part, you're going to have generated 6 mana that turn to be able to have cast something like Angel's Grace to prevent you from losing, or you already have that Phyrexian Unlife and you're kind of ready to prevent yourself from dying. Laboratory Maniac is that other one. If you withdraw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game. So, hey, I've played Laboratory Maniac. You haven't killed it. I'm going to try to go off, right? Maybe I'll have the backup plan of, hey, here's my Phyrexian Unlife already on the battlefield. Here is my Angel's Grace, just in case. And then I'm going to try to kill you this way, right? So we're going to have to see how well Andrew can disrupt what Jeremy's doing, because it is a combo-based strategy, and you have to be able to pick apart those pieces that matter, right? It's going to be a lot of these mana rock sort of styles. Here's some draw spells, and it's going to try to get the important pieces of it are those Phyrexian Unlife, Ad Nauseam, or Angel's Grace, right? You need those 3 to basically win. If you do not have a combination of Ad Nauseam with Angel's Grace or Ad Nauseam with Phyrexian Unlife, you are not going to win, all right? So just be careful. All right, let's see. Bobble, he says. So we got to be ready to see. Are we going to miss any bobble triggers? So has a fetch land, could decide, hey, do I want to know what you're playing against, or do I want to know what I'm going to draw? Oh, that's true. Steven's saying Lab Man into spoils with natural draw for the win is a pretty fun backup plan. Yeah, a lot of people do opt for Laboratory Maniac main board. That's what I did when I ran these sort of strategies. I just like that style better than just keeping it in the sideboard as another win con. I'd rather have more ways to win than less. So let's see what you're doing, he says. I'm going to take a peek. And that's a land, it looks like, because it's sign. Could be something else, but it kind of looks like a land. Which doesn't really reveal too much unless you are very familiar with what lands are in what's... Oh! Double Ad Nauseam, Phyrexian Unlife, and Angel's Grace sitting in his hand. Oh my gosh! And guess what? Can't take the Ad Nauseams. You can take Angel's Grace, Phyrexian Unlife. I like taking the Phyrexian Unlife here. Because you're a creature-based strategy, it's harder to get rid of kind of thing. Oh, and the Bloom. Yep. That looks like nice foil over hanging out in the top. So does opt to take that because that would allow him to be able to cast that Ad Nauseam in a couple turns because you do get to get a couple of mana off of it. So, yep, Andrew's going to pass and draw the card. He did have, of course, 2 baubles, so he's got that second one. Hasn't cracked it yet. Scry Land's going to be taking place. One of the few decks in Moderns that does take advantage of those Scry Lands. There's a few others, but really, if you see the blue-white one running around, you know what it is. And he says, okay, I'm going to stack this bauble and see. What did you scry at the top? What are you doing? So, I like that little manipulation that you can be able to do with Andrew's list here. Now he's got to decide where his sort of follow-up. He's got a decent amount of stuff already hanging out in the graveyard, right? You've got land, you've got sorcery, you've got artifact. So, you know, already if you play Goyf this turn, you're looking pretty good. Basic Forest going to come down. Pass turn, he says. City Brass, he'll lose a life. Pentad Prism. So next turn he will have access to at least 4 mana if he misses a land drop. So that's the sort of mana rock ability that this list does get access to. Blood Crypt going to drop Andrew down to 15. And you might be thinking, okay, he's not that worried right now, but, you know, oh, another Inquisition. So he says, okay. Yikes. Yeah, Phyrexian Unlife makes the most sense because he says, hey, you can do Phyrexian next turn. Be ready to go for the follow-up. If there's a Simian Spirit Guide or something, Jeremy can go off this turn. City Brass does have access to 5 mana, will pass, and see what Andrew's able to draw into. He's really hoping that he can get to a Thoughtseize. That way he can strip away another card. If he's got another Inquisition, that's fine. He can get rid of Angel's Grace. But the more cards that you can take out of Jeremy's hand, the better here. You know that he does have access to 2 of those cards, so just stripping away the protection now is what you have to do. He was able to get the Phyrexian Unlife out of Jeremy's hand. Now he just has to find a way to get that Angel's Grace out of his hand. And for those that are not familiar with Angel's Grace, oh, we got an island here. Okay, so So now he's just kind of debating and seeing, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to try to strip away cards from my hand again? If you do, I can try to kill you this turn. And that's exactly what he does. He says, okay, I'll cast both of these. Hey, I can't lose this turn, by the way. Just so you know, my life doesn't get below 1. I'm going to cast this Ad Nauseam, and I'm going to draw my whole deck. And Andrew's going to say, okay, I'm going to do Manamorphose here. Alright, in response to that. Here's this instant that I'm going to use. I'm going to make a red and a black, right? And I'm going to draw a card and see if I can do something else. That is pretty good. I didn't realize that he had that available to him. Wow! So guess what? He made a blue because he has access to Stubborn Isle. So maybe he said, you know, black and a blue. But, wow! Stubborn Isle. Right? What? Oh my gosh. And now Jeremy has to replenish his resources. Stubborn Isle. Let's counter that unless you pay 1. Oh, you committed completely to that move and have no extra mana to pay to that? Okay. Wow. That was unexpected, I would say. Manamorphose helping to fix that mana. I'm wondering, like, how Jeremy was feeling when he heard him name Blue, too. Was it just like, oh, you really are, like, going deep for this Traverse style, huh? You're playing all the colors. Says, here's my Goyf. Instant, sorcery, artifact, land. I don't know if there's any creatures. Land, instant, sorcery, artifact. So 4/5 at least. No, 5/6. Oh, enchantment, guys. There's an enchantment in there too. And he says, hey, I'm going to traverse. I have Delirium because I have an instant sorcery, land, and an artifact. Is Jeremy trying to commit here? Or he's just like, oh, okay. So you can either get a creature or a land. Okay. That's fine. Go ahead. It says I'm going to get a second Goyf. So it looks like he did cast Ad Nauseam here. Taking 3. Taking 6. 8. So it looks like he's going to stop with that, I think. I think he took... Maybe my math is off. $11 maybe? We'll say he took 11. That seems close. Problem is with not having people there to... I counted 10. Okay. So that... I'm going to believe you, Atomic Waffles. You counted 10. We'll say he's at 9. Suspends the Lotus Bloom. This got 3 turns for that, he's saying. Let's cast the Phyrexian Unlife here. 13 now, okay. I'm gonna believe you. So we'll say he's at 6. Phyrexian Unlife, he says. So Phyrexian Unlife's a unique card. Alright, so you don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. As long as you have 0 or less life, all damage is dealt as though its source had an infect. Those are indeed 2 City of Brasses. Brasses. Oh, I guess so he lost 2 more to cast the Ad Nauseam. So he should be at 4 then, right? Looks like he's discarding down at this point. I mean, that's dangerous, though. Because if he can't... That's true. Life is off slightly for using them. But if we say he's at 4 here, you know, he'll go to 0 next turn. And then, if Andrew plays his second Goyf, he basically says... This is 10 points of poison damage next turn unless you can stop both of these attacks. So Andrew will untap. He says, yeah, I'll come at you for 5. Jeremy shrugs. Goes to 0. Guess a little discussion about life totals and stuff. We're going to go under the assumption that he's at 0 right now. Andrew needs to play his second Goyf here, though. Because giving Jeremy extra turns is not where you need to be. Oh, he did. Okay. Alright, so basically he's just saying, hey, Jeremy, you get 1 extra turn to try to kill me. And yeah, Jeremy's just going to scry, put some cards on the bottom, checks how many cards he has in his hand. Okay, here's another Pentad Prism. Here's another Pentad Prism. Pass turn. Combat? He says, I'd like to move to combat. Here's 5 points of infect damage. Teamer Battle Rage! Oh, that's why he didn't. Ooh, Pact of Negation? Was that what that was? I think that was a Pact of Negation, guys. Yeah, so he's saying, hey, I have 5 infect counters on me. This will go off. I need to pay for my Pact of Negation. He says, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pay like so. He still has to go off this turn, though. But this is the thing, like... Him not playing that second Goyf could have cost him this game, depending on what Jeremy has access to. Looks like a Serum Visions. 2 cards he doesn't really care about. Both of those will go on the bottom. Let's see, did he draw into Nauseam? So he's already used 2. He's got 2 more left in his deck. But if he doesn't get away... Alright, here's 3 mana. Cast the Simian Spirit guy. Nice. Pass turn, he says. Says, listen, I'm going to stay alive. 1 extra turn here. Simian's going to be blocking. I mean, Jeremy's board is starting to creep over into Andrew's side now. Andrew's going to be playing that Verdant. He says, hey, can you give me some room to play my stuff? I'm going to fetch this. Lose 3 life. Go to 12. Get this Watery Grave. Whew. If he has a Fatal Push, it's all over. If he has Dismember, it's over. If he's got... Oh, well. There it is. Pact of Negation. Still had it. Oh. It's not over, guys. There's the Dismember. Now it's over. I'll lose 4 life, he says, and I'm going to give this guy -5, -5. And Jeremy says, you got it. You had both of them. You needed them both. Gives Andrew the lead here. 1-0 in this series. All right. So Jeremy did get to buy himself 1 extra turn, just slight variance, and Andrew, I think, going more style points, was saying, "Hey, I'm going to just become immense, get you," kind of thing. Maybe he was worried about any board wipe stuff that Jeremy might have access to. I don't know how familiar Andrew is with the Ad Nauseam list, but you got to see a lot of Andrew really did a great job of stripping away the important cards for Jeremy, and he had to try to climb his way back up and establish a board presence, establish a presence at all in that game. So, tough uphill battle there for Jeremy. Andrew doing a really good job of directing how that game was supposed to be played there. So, really nice. So Jeremy kind of going through, seeing, okay, what do I have on my board that I care about for this? Ley Lines of Sanctity are pretty nice because it helps protect you from those cards. Familiar enough in that matchup to hold up Manamorphose into Stubborn, says Atomic. Yes, that is true. I was not, to be honest, Stubborn and I was not on my radar at all. I was not not expecting that. I don't think Jeremy was either, because that completely caught him off guard and completely saved Andrew's life there. If he did not have the Manamorphose into Stubborn, that was it. So really nice play on Andrew's part to see that line of play and be able to navigate through all that. So how many people are hanging out on the East Coast, or at least in Virginia, and getting ready for some snow, as they keep calling it? I don't know if anyone's heard any updates on what the weather's supposed to be. I know it's supposed to be some nasty weather over the next 2 days. East Coast about to get some tornadoes, too. What? East Coast just having some bad luck with weather, it sounds like. Oh, Georgia's going to get hit with some tornadoes? That's horrible. I hope everyone's okay that is out in the Georgia area. I had not heard about tornadoes, too. Yeah, North Jersey, not looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm supposed to be driving up to New York on Friday, so I'm hoping that the weather holds out enough for us to be able to make the trip up.
Okay.
And Jeremy's going back at it again. Swiping left, swiping right. While Andrew's getting himself all shuffled up and ready to go here. So Steven said, I saw snow for Wednesday, so it should be fine. Snow removal north of D.C. is fine. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. My wife is from New York, and the way that they handle snow and deal with snow up there is very different from the way that they handle snow out in Winchester, Virginia. So that's fine. All right. 23 minutes left on the clock here. Going to be getting ready for game number 2. Hi, Annie. Also, the House of Cats, so you might hear my cat meowing a little bit in the background tonight, guys. Alright, let's see how things are going. Looks like there was an ad nauseam in Jeremy's hand, but maybe nothing else to go with it. Not really feeling any good protection, no ley line, so going to be shipping it. Oh, that's it. Snow in Georgia is kryptonite. Yes, snow any further south, and the world feels like it's ending. Steven's all saying, I got 20 inches in Boston last week, and the roads were clear the following morning. Living in Newport News, I wasn't used to that. Yeah, it's crazy to see how the removal is. Like, I went up to Boston for PAX right around the time last year for that huge blizzard that was coming through, and it was just like, yeah, everyone just seems fine and normal. It's like, okay, more snow, no big deal. I don't know. I can't deal with the cold very well, so I'm fine with just a little bit of snow that we get in Virginia each year, and that's good enough for me. Looks like Andrew's happy with his hand, going to be sticking with the 7. Maybe he's got one of those heavy disruption based hands, and is fine with going, hey, here's my Inquisition Thought Seize, just get things going right off the bat. See another ad nauseam in Jeremy's hand. And, so he's digging. Yeah, he's showing him, hey, I'm looking for this, by the way. I'm looking for the ley line. Yeah, the ley line makes a big difference of how you can sculpt your hand, especially if you're not that worried about major threats early on. And the Shadow list can take their time in building up threats. It's not like Infect or Affinity where they can just dump a bunch of things into one creature or go really wide really quickly, or like the human list. You don't have to worry so much about that. Looks like gonna start things out with a serum. He sees an ad nauseam, and so he says, you know what, we can keep that on top, but I don't need that as my next draw. I think he put that second. Let's see. Did Andrew get an Inquisition of Thoughtseize? Bobble to start with. Might want to see what... Oh, so it looks like he's going to be basing his fetch off of what is going on here. So it says, hey, I'll sack this. Look at my top card. See if I need to fetch that away this time or not. Ooh, Thoughtseize. So he says, hey, here's an Angel's Grace that you're going to take because I had 2 in my hand. I will lose 4 life to do it, so I'm going to go to 16, shock myself, and Thoughtseize because I need to keep that top card hanging out up top. And he'll pass. So probably it was a land that Jeremy had at the top. So he says, okay, we'll both draw. Yep, there's a land. And pass. So Jeremy here is hoping that he can keep that in a little bit longer. Was really hoping to get the ley line, but nothing was able to stick with those mulligans. So we will see a fetch, probably a shock off that. Dropping him to 13. Yep, we'll get Watery Grave, so he does have access, double black, green, and a blue. No red, but not that worried about it at this point in time. I think you'd much rather have access to those Stubborn Denials and things like that. So how many people at home are ready to stream up some Magic Arena once the all clear is given on the 22nd? Let's see. Inquisition. Hey, I know you've got another card. What do you got? And he says, well, I got 2. You can take my Angel's Grace, and I'll hold on to this one ad nauseam. So, it says, hey, here's my scry land. I'm going to scry this. And I'm going to decide to put it on the bottom. Passes on over. And now he's basically, Jeremy's in that hope, hey, please don't get another Thoughtseize. We can wait. It's okay. I'll sit here. Just don't get another Thoughtseize. Well, Andrew says, I'm going to shock myself. With this overgrown, not overgrown, a stomping ground going to 11. Goyf. Pass turn. Four, 5's pretty scary. Death Shadow. He's just a 2/2. Where's the Phyrexian Unlife, he says. Oh, that's not a good sign. Here's another fetch land, so he could lose 3 life here. Push for more damage. Going down to 10. Could be going to 8 as well. I would assume as much. Yep. Death Shadow has now become a 5/5, so that's for sure 9 damage. Going to be swinging across. Alright, let's see. 9 damage. Drops Jeremy to 11. It's a powerful swing. Yeah, Atomic making a good point here. He's saying that mull to 4 versus discard is virtually unwinnable. Like, without mulling down and hitting a ley line, it's very, very hard to try to come back from that. So Andrew's trying to, I think, look through his line and say, okay, can I kill you this turn? And he says, I'm going to go to 6. So I can try to kill you. And here's a Teamer Battle Rage just in case. I missed it. Oh, I think he's just, yeah, okay, I accept it. Whew, I was like, what's going on? What are they doing? So, there we go. So, whew, tough one. As you can see, we've got some Pokemon hanging out at the bottom. If you're following the stream, subscribe to the stream, and you're chatting in chat, you can be able to get access to cool Pokemon. So thanks again for tuning in and watching, guys. Hope you're enjoying the stream so far tonight. We've got one more round to go. Again, your interactions and stuff, we're trying something new, adding in more chat interactions with the stream, setting it up to just kind of have some fun, right? That's what the whole Pokemon stuff is about at the bottom of the stream. And they'll just kind of walk around. You can jump around with them, do things in between games. The more that you chat as you are following it, the more you can do. We'll eventually get stuff where you can get points and gamble and do things like that. I'm just going to be working on setting that up in the future again. We had that on the stream for a while, but now we're going to be looking into adding it back in. So just other fun stuff that we can do. So again, if you're liking stuff, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's jump into round number 5. Oh, right. I forgot that I was on camera. So we do our best to try to show as many different players as possible. Cameron was one of our newer faces, lives up in West Virginia, drove down to the shop this week and said, hey, you know what? He hasn't been on camera. This seems like a good person to show up since he is new. Perfect time to throw him up on camera. Just to kind of show off his skills, get people to understand the Amulet Titan list and stuff like that. Jeremy was running it last week, and it has popped up from time to time for those that are familiar with the deck. So we're going to go into this. I'm going to be rocking out Grixis Death Shadow. This is the second week that I have been piloting this list. So I'm going to be trying to improve on my record since last week. Still learning the ins and outs of the decks, but I, am enjoying the play style of the deck. Now, Death Shadow itself has fallen out of favor a little bit more against some of the other decks that are running around in the meta. Like you are facing that red-green Eldrazi, that does pretty well in that matchup, right? You're facing down Jund. Jund does pretty well, so it's still a powerful deck, and you can still do really well with it. Just you have to be aware and careful of what the meta choices are running around. Now, I had no idea what Cameron was on going into this, and so that's not making any assumptions or determinations on how to keep my hand, right? It's one of those, well, this is a mystery. Let's try to figure out what he is on, see if I can make it work with the particular hand that I have. And so, starting with this, it's like, okay, there's a couple of things you're on. Ancient Stirrings, okay, there's narrowing it down to kind of like 2 decks that it could possibly be based on what you get off the Ancient Stirrings. That'll determine really what deck that you're on. Alright, if it's... And so he gets a Bojuka Bog, and so that's in my mind saying, okay, you're on some sort of Amulet Titan style of play. And I'm going to cycle a Street Wraith, go to 18 on his turn. And we're going to play that Fetch Shock game as well. Going for that Watery Grave here. And I can't remember if it's Inquisition or Thoughtseize here, but I do something, and it looks like Slaughter Pact and Azusa with 4 lands. So that's that 100% confirmation that it is the Titan. Alright? So Selesnya, Simic, Bojuka, and Aether Hub are the lands. Then he's got Azusa to play a bunch of lands, and Slaughter Pact. So I'm fine with him having Slaughter Pact. I don't want him to play all of his lands and be able to get a prime time out quickly. So I'm going to be putting a stop to that. So he'll use that and say, that's fine. I don't really care. Here's an Engineered Explosive. And he opted to put it on 2 here. So he wasn't sure if I was running Traverse or Grixis. Right? There's no real indication yet on which way I'm going. It's based on what sort of spells that I'm going to be playing. Like Thought Scour here basically is the confirmation, hey, I'm going to be rocking out the Grixis list. You don't really run the Thought Scour in the Traverse list. And now Cameron's like, well, I was really playing this to kind of stop Goyf, and now I know I can't really worry about that because you're not running Goyf. And I'm going to drop down to 12 life. Perfect amount to play a Death Shadow for 1, right? And that is the plan. Knowing that he's got that Slaughter Pact and then a bunch of lands that I can kind of be a little bit annoying for now. And that's kind of my way of saying, hey, he's got a power of 1. Make sure that you're keeping track of life totals sitting at home. And Cameron going to take a quick gander through Graveyard here. Get an idea of what I've got going on and say, okay, do I care about this Bojuka Bog now to make sure that I could be able to pay for Slaughter Pact if need be? Do I get rid of your Graveyard in case you decide to do some crazy shenanigans and get a Tassiger out or a Gurmag Angler? And he says, alright, I can generate black mana. I'm okay, I'll have 3 to pay for this next turn. Just get rid of it now before it gets too big. Gonna be fetching, shocking down to 9. Rob, 5,000 times 1. Thank you for the follow tonight. Glad you're liking the stream. So, decision makings is, do I make him discard a card, lose one of his lands? Do I destroy the artifact? You know, I think probably making him a discard is the better play than the artifact because I don't care as much about the artifact, right? And I know that he's got to be using up his lands and stuff like that, so... And Bojuka, he says, I'm just going to get rid of your Graveyard. You can't do anything with that. Follows it up with the Lotus Bloom on Suspend here. Was able to get back... Oh, going to go to 7. And now I get the confirmation, okay, he's only got lands. But he does have the ability to try to transmute soon, so I have to be careful about that. Death Shadow's the 6/6. Math checks out. Looks like there is an Ancient Stirrings. It says I'm going to float a blue, play this Ancient Stirrings, see what I can find. Radiant Fountain will... Well, nope. Boros. Aether Hub, he says. Use that. Transmute. Find... Pact. Goes for the Summoner Pact. So he can be able to use Summoner Pact, get his lovely Primetime next turn. I'm going to fetch Shock down to 4. Putting Snapcaster, so I have another beater here. Combat, Teamer Battle Rage. So going through the motions here, Cameron was nice enough to say, hey, if you have it, you can show it to me. We'll go to game 2 kind of thing. Just kind of going through the motions for the stream. But getting lucky in that game 1 where Cameron was slow to get into a transmute, was kind of slow to get hit the lands that he needed. You know, he's doing what he could with the Slaughter Pact and trying to delay things for a bit. You know, Azusa getting taken right away was a little bit painful, but now he can go into sideboard. Another thing too was him making the gut call and saying, okay, I need to try to go for this engineered on 2 because I feel like it's got to be a Traverse Shadow, right? We saw a Traverse Shadow earlier in the night. Maybe that's just what runs around this shop, right? So there is that route of things. So both players are going to be digging into their sideboards, trying to figure out what might be the best route. A little bit more control side of things could be brought in for Grixis Shadow, saying, okay, do I have more Stubborn Denials? Also, I'm interested in Engineered Explosive, knowing that he's got some cards that cost 0. I know he's got cards that cost 1 that I want to kill. Like, his artifacts are tough to deal with. So I have to be careful about those. I don't want too much of, like, Fatal Push and stuff like that, because Azusa gets around that unless I fetch, and Primetime's just too big for it, so that's irrelevant. So that is one of the ones that I'm quick to sideboard out in this position. What's nice for Cameron is he's got to hope that he is able to get things set up with the Amulet. We saw that first game, no Amulet, and so with and without an Amulet are completely different matches almost. So I'm hoping that you guys get a chance to see what it is like when Amulet Titan player has his Amulet out and the shenanigans that can go about with how much mana can be generated. And looks like a mulligan for me. Ancient Stirrings in Cameron's hand. Couple of lands. One of those, of course, does have the ability to transmute with that Teleria West. It is the House of Cats. I don't know if you guys can hear the cat in the background. Oh, of course we're going to get our garden. Here's our O1 plant. Right. And Lotus Bloom suspends for 3. Plant can be annoying just because it's a blocker, can get in the way. Nice with this sort of list. Looks like going to shock and Thoughtseize this turn. So there is the amulet in here, which is nice to get rid of. There's a Walking Ballista, Ancient Stirring, Summoner Pact here. So like I talked about, is the game is very different when that amulet of Vigor is allowed to stick around. So for those that aren't familiar with the card, again, if there's a card that we're talking about that you don't know, you can simply type !card, type in the card's name, and get close to it. Doesn't have to be exact in the spelling, and you'll be able to have that pop up for you to read. When a permanent enters the battlefield, tap under your control, untap it. An Engineer Explosives, that seems pretty nice to be able to put on 1. Teleria West tapped. And it's okay to sit here and play these tap lands like this that have value because you have those bounce lands later to be able to use. Alright? So Ancient Stirring is going to get used. He'll be able to look and find, hopefully, an artifact, looking for an amulet. If he can't find it, and he does. He's got lots of access to lands. So it says, yep, I'll find this amulet. I can be able to play this amulet this turn and be in a good spot. And I will fetch Shock down to 13 and hit him with a Counter Squall to put him to 18. Counter Squall, counter target non-creature spell. That player loses 2 life. So have the option to try to save it, knowing he's got like the Summoner's Pact and stuff, but the matches where he's got the amulet is super scary and hard to deal with. So often to go for that route here. And you can see this time around, I'm much more of this defensive reactionary, and missing land drops hurts. Walking Ballista for 1, he says. That's a 1/1. And we'll return that to my hand, he says. And I'll bolt. He'll shoot me for 1. Alright, so I'll go to 12. Which means that if I wanted to, I can say, hey, let's force the issue, and we can battle over things here. I can be able to play a Death Shadow now if I wanted to. Saying, hey, he's a 1/1. That's what that indicator is. He says, Summoner's Pact. So I should have Summoner Nile here, made him pay the 1, and delayed him an extra turn. Because he needed all of that to be able to cast it. So that was my fault of having the Summoner Nile and not using it there to delay things. Delaying 1 turn is not that big a deal when I'm missing land drops and stuff, but it's still, I think, looking back at it, was the one play for right there that made a difference. So, of course, Primetime resolves. He can be able to find lands, and yep, he does. Say, okay, here's some lands that I'm going to be getting. All right, making more plans, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Pass turn. Still has that pack trigger to pay for, so he says, okay, here, I'm going to pay the 4 so I don't lose, right? It says move to combat, trigger, declaring attacks. I'm going to find 2 lands. He does have that 2 mana available to him, the Simic Growth Chamber, so he can activate and blow up his engineered explosives here. So he ends up being able to find that Boros Garrison, as well as the Sunhome Fortress of Legion, which the Fortress of Legion gives a creature double strike until the end of the turn, but of course they enter tap, so won't lose to that this turn, but I end up taking 6 damage here, putting me to 6. So I go, alright, coming at you for 6, I know you're going to blow it up, let's just blow it up, right? And with that Bojuka Bong, I lost my ability to play this Tasigur. Not that Tasigur would do much against the Primeval Titan here. And he says Primetime trigger, and yep, nothing that I can do to deal with that trample. Let's go to game 3. Cameron tying it up. Sitting at 1-1 now. So again, the plan that I'm trying to go for as the Grixis Shadow is fight over those important cards. Summoner packs, fight over Amulet of Vigors, things like that. If he's able to get a Prime Time, well, I've got to hope that I'm in a good position to be able to kill that off. I'm wondering now if Liliana the Veil is the right play to go for in this matchup. Being able to make him sack when he only has 1 creature is nice, but in that sort of position where he's got, hey, here's a bunch of plants that I can just sack to it, doesn't really help out. So, but if I'm able to get it and be able to draw or make him discard a bunch of cards, can help keep him limited on what he gets to do. So Cameron's sitting with an Azusa in hand. We did get to see that kind of get taken care of previously, but we'll see what happens this time with a Fetch Shock Inquisition. And he says, okay, I've got Summoner's Pact, I've got a Primetime in hand, I've got an Azusa, and I've got a Lotus Bloom. So, if you guys are getting into the whole tournament Magic scene, I recommend you write down cards. It makes a big difference on your ability to interact with your opponent and respond to what they're doing. So, get rid of Azusa again. And that could be telling as well of what I've got, if I have removal or not, based on what I take in the beginning like that. Oh, he says, hey, I'll suspend this. Here's my Sunhome Legion. Sunhome Fortress of the Legion. Cycle the Street Wraith. Digging, going to 15. Looking for some lands, maybe. Scalding Tarn. Looking for more discard, probably. Looking to get a Thoughtseize to get rid of his Prime Time. Get rid of his ability to find a Prime Time off of his Summoner's Pack. Because if I can get a Thoughtseize, strip away his Prime Time, I could try to counter when he searches up for another Prime Time.